How's it going? I'm Ryan, and today I'm going to go over the one trade that I took on NQ. I longed in the morning, nearly caught the bottom, and ended up with over a 70-point win. So we'll take a look at that trade in just a second. First, I'm going to look at the hourly chart, kind of go over what I was watching, why I took the trade that I did, what I was looking for coming into the day. So, the past couple days we had formed a series over the past, I guess, day and a half. We had formed a series of higher highs, higher lows, and overnight, or I suppose pre-market, we had a pretty big sell-off. So what I was looking at is where we were. We had a level in here, or a zone about 750 to 780, and this was an area that yesterday we saw some support and we saw some buying coming out of this area. So yesterday when the morning opened, we pushed higher out of this area, and then when we pulled back into this area, we also made a move higher. So if I extended this to the left, so we can look at previous price action. Let's take that back a few days. So if we extend that back, what we see is that it's been support before. It's also been resistance. Resistance broke above it, acted as support. And so coming into this morning, we had this pre-market sell-off, and we were back in this area that we had found support before. And in fact, we had bounced in here in the pre-market and then started to make a lower high. And then we were kind of pulling back into this area. So what I wanted to see was if we could get a bit of a double bottom here, if we could hold support here, and then make our way up to this next zone. That was basically it. If we broke below this, I had this zone to the downside. If we broke below that, this zone to the downside. But my first kind of idea was to watch if we could hold and move higher off of this zone. So if we're looking at the 5-minute, we have this pre-market sell-off, we have this bounce, and then as the market opens, we pull back into this area that we held in the pre-market, from that pre-market low. I entered along and caught about 74 points, I believe it was. So overall, pretty nice move. I will go over what I was watching. So like I said, was watching the hourly, looking for this area to hold as support. I'll show you how I got these zones in the first place in just a second. But I entered around 763 or 765, I suppose it was. My stop loss was below this pre-market low, so about 734, 733 or so. So about 30 points of risk, 30, 32. And my initial take profit was up here at these wicks, which would have been about 90 points. So looking at about a 3-to-1 initially. And then I took profit a little early. So I took profit around 74 points. And that is because yesterday I was a few points from hitting my take profit. I had price retrace all the way back down and stop me out for break even. So I think I had a little bit of a trauma, a little bit of PTSD from that. And seeing that I was up over 70 points, I was happy to take it there. So especially with this big sell-off and then kind of this little bounce and then pulling back and getting a good reaction. But I wasn't sure that we were going to maybe have this much of a move to the upside. So I did sell a little early. My initial stop limit or sell limit, I think it was 860, kind of right around these wick highs. So I sold 20 points early, left a couple $100 on the table, but still over a 2-to-1 risk to reward. So anything over 2-to-1, I'm happy with. 2-to-1 and up is great for me. So let's check out the 1-minute and kind of why I decided to pull the trigger really early. I usually would like to have a 5-minute candle close for confirmation, and I did not wait for that because I just had a strong feeling that I was watching price as we pulled into this area. Let's pull this up. So what I was watching is before we even had the market open, we were getting some little bounces in here, and I was seeing volume pick up as we got closer to this zone. And then as we dipped down, we formed a hammer the very first minute of the day, testing this like 760, which I wanted to see us hold. The following candle dipped down and started to move up higher off of that, and I entered there. So I was also watching this 5-minute bid ask volume. And you can see as we kind of came down into this area, you can see how much volume was starting to pick up in here. And before this candle closed, this point of control was actually all the way down here. So just watching price kind of dip down into this area that I expect buyers to be present, seeing price move rapidly to the upside off of that, seeing the bid-ask volume really pick up down there. And then as well as it's an area that has acted as support before, and we got a big reaction out of that area yesterday. So all those things kind of gave me the confidence to enter long once I saw some confirmation on the 1 minute. Like I said, stop below pre-market low, about 30 points. Take profit initially, it was about 90 points, 3 to 1. I took it a little early, so a little over 2 to 1. Now, that's it. I was done in the first 3 minutes, 4 minutes of the day. So we can go over how I find these levels. In the first place, I was asked to do a video on how I determine my levels, my zones. And those are all coming from the volume profile. So let me pull these up. And what I do is I use the volume profile on the 5-minute chart, and I look at the overnight session and the daily session separated. So what we're looking at here is the current daily session. This starts at 9:30, and then I believe it goes until 5 p.m. So it goes from 9:30 to like 5 p.m. And then the overnight session goes from 6 p.m. until 9:30. So overnight session captures the overnight and the pre-market. Daily session captures the New York session plus I think like an extra hour after it closes, which is a little odd, but it seems to work. That being said, these are volume profiles of these sessions. If you don't know what those are, I would take a look into just Googling or YouTubing volume profile. Essentially, it's a measure of volume at particular price as opposed to time. So what we're seeing here on the left, or excuse me, the right, is volume represented like a histograph, and it is corresponding to price points at which that volume occurred, if that makes sense. And these yellow areas are what's called the value area. That's where you have this yellow line as the point of control. That's the price at which the most volume has happened during the session. And then you get one standard deviation to either side, and that shows the value area. So this is 70% of the total value that happened during that session, or total volume, excuse me, and that is the value area. You have the value area high and value area low respectively, and this point of control kind of right where price is testing. So I use volume profiles for my levels and zones because price moves based off liquidity. If you have big areas of volume, that means there's a lot of people agreeing to transact at those prices, right? That's a lot of people transacting, selling, buying, etc. And then when you have areas like in here where there's very low volume, you can see price move pretty quickly through those areas because there's not a lot from stopping whatever momentum price may have. If it's moving to the upside aggressively and there's not a lot of volume, well, it's probably not going to stop that aggressive move. But once you start to see a lot of volume pick up, so we can see that there's a ton of volume up here in the after hours and pre-market session, and we see price move through. This is a great example actually. So if I hide these drawings, so we see there's a big cluster of volume down here. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I'll just hide these and then I'll just use my cursor. So there's a big cluster of volume down here, right? If we're looking at that big cluster of volume down here, and then it gets pretty thin in here, and then a big cluster of volume up here. And what do you see, right? You see that price moves aggressively from here up into this next area of liquidity. There's not really much stopping it, right? It makes a big aggressive push up here. And then from up here, we see some more chop. I don't want to call it chop necessarily, but we see less fluid price action. We see price come up, pull back, come up, pull back, come up, pull back, make a lower low, lower high, and then we see it drop aggressively. And then once we get back down into this area that has a lot of volume, we see similar things, right? We see price move aggressively through areas of low volume, and then we see these areas of high volume kind of being magnets for price. And so I use these high volume nodes as levels. Let's take a look. I didn't mean to do that. So what I'm looking for coming into the day is um, I'm looking at areas that have volume spikes or just high volume nodes. For example, this is a great explanation or great example where we have this really concentrated spike of volume in this overnight session. And this was the overnight and pre-market session before yesterday's price action. And you can see how yesterday's price action responded to it, right? We got some movement kind of in and around, kind of rejecting off of it. Then once we move out of that, we get a big move to the upside. We pull back to it, move to the upside, pull back to it, move to the upside, and we see that this acts as support. Likewise, I have this zone down here. This is kind of just corresponding to this high volume from a couple days ago, 2 days ago, and the overnight session from not last night, but the night before. So likewise, we have like a big volume spike here, and then we can see how price reacted to it in yesterday's session when it got up to it. So I carry that through and I look for that in current sessions. So there's not like a precise, it's a bit of an art, I suppose, in terms of could I consider this volume? Absolutely. You certainly could. And I find that some work better than others, and I find the ones that work better than others are the ones that are kind of these isolated spikes in volume. So like up here, and that is because we have kind of a void in volume in here, and when you have those voids, price is more likely to move through them quickly to the next source of liquidity, which would be these high volume areas. So when you have like yesterday, if I hide these drawings, you have a ton of volume happening in here, and it's not really there's not really like one distinct area. Obviously you have a lot in here, you kind of have a little spike in here, but I don't weigh too much on that. What I pay more attention to is when you kind of have these distinct little bubbles of volume. That just to me seems to work when I watch price. Obviously I'm no expert, or don't take my word for it. You can try these things out yourself. But I find that when these spikes of volume are kind of isolated, that they seem to work a little better. But that's it. That's really it. And then it also, I look for areas that make sense just price action wise. So I'll look at like a 1 hour, and I'll draw these based off the volume profile. But then when I pull up the 1 hour, you can look at it and it makes sense, right? You have this area here that was a swing high, it was a lower high that we got a big rejection off of. Okay, well, I'm expecting there to be, it's kind of like supply and demand, right? I expect there to be a bit of supply up here, so when price returns, we could see that act as resistance. Likewise, this isn't perfect, it's not quite right at the high, but you see price tests it once, almost got there today, got a big rejection. Likewise, this zone that I was showing very early in this video, just looking at price action, you can kind of tell. You get rejections out of this area, you see it act as support, you see it act as resistance, and then when you coincide that with volume, it works well. So I guess what I do is I look at a combination of price action, but then I also look at for the I almost made a mistake there. The high volume nodes that kind of correspond with that price action, and that's the context behind why I expect it to work, is because there's a lot of volume transacting in that area. Yeah, and that's really it. Like I said, there's nothing, it's not super precise. There's some interpretation. I don't always get it 100% right, but I think it is pretty close, pretty accurate. If we look at today's price action, what I really like to watch is the 1 minute as well. You can see it on the 5 minute, but on the 1 minute, if we take a look, you can kind of see how these zones are respected, right? We hold this zone as support, we come up, and we start to see us struggle at the bottom of this zone. We break into the zone, and we start to struggle at the top of the zone. Once we break out of that, where do we go? Straight to the next one. And our first sign is we start to struggle at the bottom of the zone. Then we break into it, we start to struggle at the top of the zone. What happens? We break above it. Then we pull back. It acts as support, right? We pull back, we hold the bottom of that zone. Then we kind of chop around. Can't really break above it. we reject. What do? We come up, we retest that zone, we reject. Where do we go? Down to this next zone. We start to hold the bottom of that. Try to break out, can't, reject the top of the zone, and we start to head lower. So it's not perfect. Nothing in trading is 100%. There's no strategy that works every single time. But I've found that this is a pretty good predictor of where you can expect price to move between and where you can expect there to be resistance and support, depending on which side price is approaching it from. And then when you pair that with like higher time frame, what would be a higher low? Okay, if it finds support in this high volume area, it's a higher low on a higher time frame, etc., etc. You go down to a 5 minute, a 1 minute. Okay, it's printing a volume, a hammer on high volume. It looks like it's going to bounce, or it's printing a shooting star, and the buying volume's dropping leading up to that. Okay, it looks like a point of reversal. So I just kind of combine price action with these high volume nodes, and just try to make all that line up. So it's nothing super precise. It's a little up for interpretation, I suppose. But that's how I find my levels and zones. That's all I got. I just figured I'd throw that in there because I was asked to do so. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great day. Peace.